I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for October 28th, 2015. If we could have a roll call, please. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Commissioner Hecker is excused tonight. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 28th, 2015 Public Works Committee meeting.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Anyone have any corrections or additions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's move on to our agenda items. PW1, this is a resolution, number 15-034, setting fees for the collection of refuse and recyclable materials from multifamily, commercial, retail, and industrial establishments. I make a motion to approve resolution.
Second.
I'm sorry, I just have to finish reading it a moment.
Oh, I thought you did.
I kind of did, yes.
Read it twice. So. Sorry.
Yes, actually, it is the exact same thing.
basically
So
the exact same.
I so move. Motion has been moved and seconded. Would you like to make comment? Anyone here from? Okay, Angelo's here, but self-explanatory. I take it right in.
Commissioner Bowman, yeah, this is basically fees for non-residential properties, adjusting the amount they would pay for commercial establishments, multi-unit apartment buildings that we currently collect.
Okay, is there any comment from commissioners on the committee? Comment from other commissioners who are present? Comment from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. PW2, this is the fees for large item pickup. Motion to set the fees for large item pickup as per the attached document, and there is a schedule that is, I'm sure, available to the public, and we have reviewed it, and these fees haven't gone up in quite a while, as the memo says, and the cost of dumping, as we all know, is greatly increased over these years. So any comment from commissioners?
Make the motion.
I'm sorry. And I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any comment from commissioners? Other commissioners who are present? Members of the public? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. PW3 is a bid for processing, marketing, and running our recycling transfer facility. It's a motion to enter into a contract with J.P. Mascaro, Inc. for the processing, marketing, and running the transfer facility on Fitzwatertown Road as per bid specifications, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comment from staff on this item?
The bid was put out by Upper Dublin on behalf of the consortium of recycling communities of which we are part of. I believe there are 6 other communities that are part of this. Our materials all go to the local transfer station that the 6 communities actually own, which is located on Fitzwatertown Road, right next to the sewage treatment plant. We've been with, since we opened this place, we've been in a contract with ReCommunity, which has gone through several changes in names. The company is now owned by a company called ReCommunity. We had a very good working relationship with them. What we had, our actual contract expired 2 years ago. And what we've done is we've gone on 1-year extensions for the last 2 years. And at the time, we were getting markets were pretty good when we went in the last extension. So we were getting about $17 a ton for our commingled. Of course, we send all of our paper. We market all of our own paper, and right now, Newman Paper Company has our contract. So that's separate, and we go directly to Newman Paper Company with our paper. The only stuff we bring to the facility is our commingled and On the off days after, or the days after a holiday, we do single stream, and that goes directly to the facility too. Now, that contract, we decided that, they decided to, along, we both agreed that it was time to go out and get a new contract because they were losing a ton of money as with the markets the way they are today. So we went out there, and Upper Dublin put the bid out for us, along with Springfield. We met, went over all the bid specs, agreed to everything. They put the bid out for us, and then the bids came in recently, and actually JP Mascara came in much lower than Recommunity. Waste was supposed to bid on it, and for whatever reason decided not to. The bid, we had been getting paid somewhere around $17 a ton. The new bids came in, we are now paying $34 a ton to get rid of our commingled. Single stream is $30 a ton, is what the rest of the community, because most everybody else is single stream. We were lucky we didn't make that move. It turns out to be very beneficial to us at this point in time. We're getting paid somewhere around $50-some a ton for our paper. So that kind of offsets some of the hurt that we anticipated. I feel okay. I feel comfortable. I spoke with the people who are going to be running the facility, explained what our needs are and what our problems will be. And I want to make sure that they could accommodate us, because we have an off day after we have a collection after a holiday. We have a double collection day. Single stream, we were actually filling up 4 trailers, and they only have 3 trailers on site to do everybody. So they've agreed that they will supply sufficient amount of trailers and personnel to handle us, because that's the one day we have to really worry about. Everything else we can deal with, any problems are over there. So we feel very comfortable with Mascara. Every community will have to buy into this, and so far everybody has. We're the last ones, I think. So my recommendation is we go with this. I don't have a problem with them, and we move forward on it. And on the back end of this, if the markets do go up in the future, which I'm anticipating they probably will, our costs will come down substantially.
Thank you, Ed. Any comment from commissioners on the committee? Other commissioners present? Comment from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. That's the last item on our regularly scheduled agenda. If there's any comment from the public on any public works matters? Yes, come right forward, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Rita Stevens, 115 Stanley Avenue. I'm here just to give a very brief comment about the stormwater management design for the Ed Schill Tyson reconstruction project as it pertains to Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary. Since we met at the last Public Works meeting, the Shade Tree Commission has continued its commitment to work with Pannoni. We've met in the field, surveyed over 300 trees, provided detailed GIS data to the Pannoni team, and we're waiting their feedback on the STC alignment that we're recommending for a natural channel that is completely inside township property. And it's our position that this is not to add substantial cost or delay to the project. So I just wanted to underscore that a lot of progress has been made this last month, and we are committed to continue to do so.
What does GIS stand for?
Graphic Information System. So in essence, it is all geo-referenced, and it allows the Pannoni team to work with their AutoCAD system and other mapping graphics systems so that they can directly take in our data and therefore have a much more informed design.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Zappone.
I just want to thank Rita and your crew for planting all those trees Saturday in the Ardsley Bird Sanctuary. I want to commend you and your staff. Excellent job. Thank you.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I just began learning something about what we discovered in the finances at the budget meeting about the wastewater treatment plant and the pipes and the sewers and, our sewage system all being part of the fund balance. And I'd like to understand that more, and I'm hoping that my commissioner will help me understand that. I'm not getting a lot of responses from him, but I'm certainly hoping that I will, because to me there's a great deal of understanding that all of us need. I imagine that most of you should be or could be aware that Cheltenham is considering selling their sewer system. And that frightens me to think of it, because certainly if we have challenges figuring out how to get responsible people to do that job, when we hire them and we have very good oversight over them, I can't imagine it would go better if we gave the Koch brothers the keys to that particular thing and let them bill us as they thought. With our government, we have a certain amount of oversight. We are allowed to requisition documents and so on in a very different way than we do with private entities. And it is extremely, to me, to think of our wastewater treatment plant, our sewer system, or any of those things. I still don't fully understand. I appreciate the responses I've gotten from Mr. Wrigley and Mr. Lefevre. I need to understand it in a little more depth, but I thank them for answering my first questions. But I hope all of you will be looking into this, because those assets should be locked in. And I think of our fund balance as something that is more disposable than our fixed assets. So I'm not sure the semantics of that, but just wanted to bring that up and hope that we could work together on understanding it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. Does Cheltenham have a sewer treatment plant? I didn't think so. Okay.
Sewer lines.
Commissioner Klein.
Mike, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just not true that the sewer fund is not part of the fund balance.
The wastewater system and our refuse are separate funds. They're
Right.
not part of the general fund. They're proprietary funds. They're not part of the fund balance. They have their own excess
Revenue
that they
and
retain.
expenses.
That's correct. I did explain this to the speaker in an email earlier today, responding to their questions from our last budget work session.
Yeah, we don't operate our sewer fund, our refuse fund, out of our fund balance. They have their own separate funds that have revenue and expenditures that offset each other and balance each year.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? Commissioners? Hearing none? We're adjourned.
I'll call to order the Code Enforcement and Land Development Committee meeting for October 28, 2015. And may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Sanchez.
Here.
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 And Commissioner Markman is excused for the evening. First, and really the only item, is a motion to approve the minutes of the September 28, 2015 Code Enforcement and Land Development Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. We had two items this evening. Both have been removed from the agenda for further refining, I believe, Mr. Mateo, nodding his head. So I thought maybe we'd just take a moment and have a update on the zoning code rewrite from Vice President Stephen Klein.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. So last Monday, and we presented the Planning Commission, both Montgomery County and Abington Planning Commission recommendations that they formulated back in March. of this year. We presented those were sent to the board members, I think, back in August. Is that correct, Larry? That's correct. They were sent back in August, and we finally were able to coordinate a meeting with enough commissioners last Monday, the 19th. And the purpose of that meeting was just to get any kind of feedback from the Board of Commissioners based on their review of the recommendations in the ordinance. I want to thank the commissioners that showed up for that, and we now have direction on making revisions to what was called Draft 2 and dated November 2014. The reason we went this route was after having conversations with the solicitor, and I think they can correct me if I bring anything up that's incorrect, but because we're doing a township-wide rezoning, in order for us to actually have public meetings, we would have to actually go and post almost every property in the township, since almost every property in the township will be affected. And the labor and cost involved with that, knowing that we already had to make edits, was not something I think was prudent for the township at this point. So in lieu of doing that, I remind everybody that we've had probably close to 100 hours of public meetings between neighborhood meetings, meetings in front of the Planning Commission. We've gone out and talked about specific parts of the zoning ordinance to different wards. So between all those meetings, we feel like we've given people the opportunity and commissioners the opportunity to discuss. So now we're going to start making revisions based on the recommendations of the Planning Commission and the information that we've gotten over those public meetings. And we'll come back, start the whole process over again, give the public the same opportunity to come out and discuss things as we go in front of the Planning Commission. Again, through that process and discussing the changes that we made, and if we feel that we've gotten close to where we could take it to a public hearing, then we'll work with the solicitor's office about going through the actual posting of properties and scheduling public hearings. But we won't know that until we get further down the line. So that'll bring us to Draft 3. It's possible that we would go to a Draft 4. So that's where we are now. The Planning Commission is the Montgomery County Planning Commission. A planner we have, Mike Narkowicz, has already started working on the revisions. We do have some conversations that we have to have with the solicitor on some items. So we'll be myself, Mr. Mateo, Mr. Pennicow, and Mike Narkowicz will be working on that. There are a couple items that the Planning Commission members, Abington Planning Commission members, decided that they wanted to take a look at. So we'll start coordinating with them on those items, and we'll hopefully sometime the end of the winter, early spring, we'll have Draft 3, and we'll start this whole conversation over again. But I think we're getting close. We had some good input from the Planning Commission, from the Board of Commissioners, and from the residents that have showed up on various occasions. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Klein. Any general comments from commissioners? Any staff? And then open it up to the audience for general comments on code enforcement and land development, and 3 minutes, please.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So I guess I'm a little confused again, because I thought I heard at the last meeting that they were not going to, which you were initially said, that you were not going to post all the properties because that would be too expensive, and that you weren't going to let everybody know individually. At the meeting, I thought you said that, I thought that Commissioner Klein said that if anybody wanted to challenge it after the ordinance was passed, they could challenge the ordinance. And
Well, you weren't at the meeting. What I said was, when a time comes for us to actually think about adopting the draft ordinance, we will go through the prescribed process in the MPC, which would require us to post properties accordingly, which will be decided by our solicitor. And what I went on to say further was, even though we may go through all these processes, any property owner at any time could challenge our zoning ordinance, as has happened in the past. It doesn't stop. Just because we post things properly, and just because we go through the prescribed methods of the MPC doesn't mean that a property owner somewhere along the line could say that they were unduly, their land use or land rights were unduly changed and could challenge us at any time and take it in front of court. That's what I said. You weren't here, so I don't think
No,
that
that's what I was
actually
trying to clarify, okay? I wasn't trying to insist something different. I was trying to clarify that. think the record might show. Okay? So that's exactly what my confusion was on that. So, and that certainly puts a little different light on it. So the properties will ultimately be posted that there's a zoning change and be told what the zoning change is, as should be.
As
Good.
required by
And
law.
then, so the questions that I have is that we have so many things that your residents should be out for now. And as you know, I see many or most of your newsletters, and I don't see any of this information. For instance, political signs that they can go up almost any time. They could be up 6 months in advance. They can go anywhere on public property, and they can stay out as long as they want. I mean, if I understood that correctly, that's horrendous, and I think your people want to weigh in. But if you're not telling them about that in your newsletters, and we're not getting the word out, and I know I get Commissioner Klein's newsletter, it's not in there. I mean, this is a horrendous thing that nobody would want. One year when we had a very contested race, even during the limited political sign period, people were incredibly upset. I can't even imagine the no limits thing. And also, we have many contractors, as you know, that if there's no limits, they run a carpentry business, they'll put their carpentry sign out, and everybody will be living in a commercial neighborhood. That's absolutely, and I know that the mandate supposedly came down from the state and the court cases and all of that, but this is what has to change. It absolutely has to change right at this level. Right here is where you, representing all your people, who I'm sure do not want this political sign or other signs to be allowed indefinitely, it's up to you to make one voice and take it up to the state level for us, to represent us, which is what we elected you to do, and certainly to gather together your constituents and not just say, well, we were mandated to do this, so now you all are stuck with it. It's up to us to change the laws that are not working for us. So I would appreciate if all of you would let your residents know about the little cottages that will be built in their backyards. They have, I think it's 10,000 square feet, about the signs, about all of the onerous conditions that they need to know now and be coming to the meetings now about. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Stephen.
Stephen, Commissioner Klein, how long have you been working on this? I mean, I'm not being, because I know he's come.
Larry just got out of high school when we started.
I think so. Why I'm saying this, because I know when you came to Ward 6 and you went through this, you were very informative of a lot of things going on, and I took away from the meeting that you, and I just got to say, you've done a great job.
Thank you. I mean, look, there's always going to be things, and
Yeah,
the
there's always-
signs that the speaker spoke about are still up in the air. We have to have further conversations with the solicitor, but we do know that there are some holes in our ordinance, and that have to be corrected, and that's one of the recommendations the Planning Commission has, and that's one of those recommendations that we need to sit down and have further conversations with the solicitor.
That's it. Go ahead. Commissioner Bowman.
The political sign issue, we just heard about at our last meeting, the new situation, so I am a little curious too, and I thought since our solicitor's here, maybe you can give us an update on, I guess, the new terrain for political signs.
It's actually not all that new terrain nationwide. It's a little bit new with the change in the Abington ordinance. It has been consistently upheld by all of the federal circuit courts throughout the United States that have been asked to deal with various political sign issues, that political signs are speech, and we cannot regulate speech. You cannot tell somebody that they can put a political sign on their front lawn for a particular candidate or a particular issue, and then when the election is over, they have to take it down. The law, it's not reached the United States Supreme Court, and one of the reasons it hasn't reached the United States Supreme Court is because all of the federal circuit courts have uniformly upheld the fact that political signs are speech. One of the speakers mentioned about contractors and things like that. That's commercial speech, and we can regulate commercial speech all we want. And we can put as many restrictions on commercial speech as we want. But political speech in the form of signs cannot be regulated. And people can leave them up on their own property, and in public property, publicly owned property, property that we own, we can restrict signs or from going up. But the right-of-way, the town square, things of those nature, things that are traditionally considered where the debate over political issues are held, we cannot regulate. And right-of-ways are considered that town square. And so we cannot regulate them. Having said that, as happens in most places, if any of you have ever driven through Plymouth Township by the Plymouth Meeting Mall, you know that strip right in the middle of Germantown, that all the political signs go up there, and then the Plymouth Public Works Department comes in and mows it, and they take all the signs down and they dump them, and then the next day they all go back up again. So we don't have to leave them up on the right-of-way into perpetuity. If we need to maintain it, we can take them down, and we have no requirement to put them back up. But we can't just remove them because we don't like them being there. It has to be for a purpose. So, and as I said, the courts have been very consistent in this, and you can get sued for some of these ordinances if you have certain restrictions on political signs, if you make people get a permit, if you say they can only go up 10 days before, they got to come down 10 days after. Municipalities have been sued. They've been sued in federal court. They've lost, and here's that little fee shifting thing again. The damages aren't that great, but the attorney's fees are, and you end up having to pay the attorney's fees because you lose, and that's where it gets expensive for little municipalities. So again, there's going to be some continuing discussion with Commissioner Klein and the Rewrite Committee to make sure that any restriction we can place, we will, but it's going to be significantly limited from what it is now.
Thank you, Solicitor Clark.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other commissioners? All right. Well, with that, we will adjourn.
I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting of October 28, 2015. Can I have a roll call, please? Here.
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 Commissioner Farron is excused this evening. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of September 30th, 2015. I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any corrections, changes, questions? Anything? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion has been approved. Chief Kelly, do you have a report for us this evening? I know you're on a lot tonight, but you may have other things to discuss.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, just a brief report, and I'd like to start off by turning it over to our Traffic Safety Manager, Al Freed, who will talk to you just about a couple traffic issues, followed by our Deputy Chief, John Livingood, who will talk to you about the drug take-back that occurred recently. And I'll start with our Traffic Safety Manager, Al Freed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just a reminder to everybody that our September Blitz obviously ended at the end of September. The numbers we finally got done, and we will get those out in your next packets. So get prepared to look for that. And right along with that, during the Blitz, residents are allowed to put yard signs out on their lawns. At the end of September, they need to come down, and you can hold those for storage until June when the Blitz comes back and put them back up. So just a reminder, anybody that may have a lawn sign still up, it should come down.
Good evening, Commissioners. About a week ago, we participated with the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office in drug take-back. This year was a little bit different than what we have done in the past. In the past, we have done this with the Drug Enforcement Administration. They have this day twice a year, And the goal is to get unused prescription drugs off of the street before they fall into the wrong hands. The district attorney's office has partnered with a number of police departments, including ours, throughout the county, and we split the cost of a drug take-back box. Most of you have seen it. It looks like a mailbox, except it's green, and once you put the stuff in, you can't reach in and get it out. It's locked. That sits in a secure part of our lobby, and as you know, you're not restricted, or your constituents are not restricted to dropping these things off just 1 or 2 days a year. We'll take them 24 hours a day. We have it inside our secure perimeter because we don't want people putting things in there that shouldn't be in there, that are dangerous. So all they have to do is come to the records room window, tell them they have drugs to deposit, no questions asked, no identification required, and they will be accompanied inside a secure perimeter. They will deposit the drugs in there. The only restrictions we have are we want no sharps, which means no hypodermic needles that somebody could get hurt on, and no liquids. But other than that, we will take anything and everything. And we've been extremely successful with this. Now, we always see a little bit of a bump, if you will, when we have these take-back days, but throughout the year, we collect a tremendous amount of drugs. I think as a result of the last take-back day, we took 3 full cardboard boxes that the district attorney's office collected from us. They're then taken to a pharmaceutical company where they are incinerated in a high-temperature incinerator, which is where DEA disposes of their unused drugs. So we think this is an extremely worthwhile project, and just remember, anybody can come in at any point in time, and we'll take those drugs and get them out of the wrong hands. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a couple of other things. Deputy Chief Livingood talked about the volume of the drugs that we've taken back, but we want to make it clear that, no, we can't use that as a revenue source to help balance the budget. We know it's in budget season, but that's not something we'll be doing. But
And you definitely can't get in that mailbox.
you know that for a fact, Commissioner? Okay. Just a couple of other things I want to say. I had just checked with prior to this meeting, checked with our solicitor about the traffic blitz signs because of the new issue that come up. I'm sure it crossed your mind when Officer Freed was mentioning about that, and he agreed with the idea that we can ask citizens to take them down after the month as was originally prescribed. We know that they're ineffective if you leave them up at long periods of time, besides the fact making the neighborhoods look ratty after a while. And so we're going to continue to encourage citizens to take them down. Obviously, there are signs, so we have the right to do that. However, obviously, we would not be doing any type of enforcement on anybody that leaves it up because of the recent ruling. But just wanted you to know where that stood regarding the traffic blitz signs. So I think we're in good shape with that, and the policy on that's going to be pretty clear about that. I want to thank the commissioners that came out for our food festival for the Police Athletic League. It was a great community party, and that obviously raised a lot of money that not only does good things for our kids, but enables us to do those programs without using taxpayer dollars for that. So thank you for that. Coming up this next few weeks, the Commission for the Law Enforcement Accreditation is coming in. CALEA, known as CALEA, is coming in once again for our international reaccreditation. As you know, we've done this a number of times, and most of you are aware of the fact that there's only 6 or 7 municipal police departments in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania out of 1,117 police departments that have this level of accreditation, and we're going to be going through that in just a couple weeks. We're going for a new level that they have just instituted in accreditation called the Gold Standard. You have to meet certain criteria to be eligible to even go for that. It's going to be a real stretch for us. It's going to be trying even harder than usual to meet the standards to achieve the Gold Standard. It is the highest level of accreditation internationally, and we're going for it, and we'll report to you back as we go along with that, and let you know how that's going along. I just wanted also to tell you about something that happened today, kind of a very interesting experience that I think you'd like to know about and be proud of. There was a meeting at the governor's residence today, and it was about issues on law enforcement, crime prevention, the many issues going on involved with law enforcement. And there were 14 people brought in from around the state to be at that, including the commissioner in Philadelphia, the chief in Pittsburgh, the head of the state police, a representative from the Attorney General's office, and so on. But there were also 3 people from Abington Township. Our own Josh Shapiro, the head of the Commission on Crime and Delinquency, chaired it. Risa Furman was there. I'm representing the District Attorneys Association, and I was honored to be there as representing one of the representatives from the Chiefs Association, and talking about where we need to be going as a profession in our state. And I have to tell you that a number of the things that were brought up are things that your men and women of your police department are doing already. It was really gratifying. There wasn't anything there that we said, geez, that was something we really need to make changes on. So it makes us feel like we're probably going in the right direction on most things, but we like to go to those things anyway to see if there's any new things that we can be looking at, or also new sources of revenue. Part of the benefit of having the Commission on Crime and Delinquency there is they fund all the innovative programs, and so we were looking at that as well, and just want to make sure that the board knew about that. It's something that obviously we should all be proud of, but also indicates that we're trying to do whatever we can do to learn about what needs to be done for the future that is coming upon us. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I also wanted to kind of follow up on what Deputy Chief had been talking about. Commissioner Sanchez had requested that you talk at some point about the opioid overdoses and Narcan use. Is he still here? Isn't that what you wanted? A report on? Yeah. So maybe for the next meeting, you want to?
Absolutely. We'd be happy to do that. And as you're all probably aware, because of the successes in the handful of departments in Montgomery County that have been using the Narcan or naloxone, the District Attorney's Office is using drug asset seizure funds to provide it for police departments all over the county. But that's because of the handful that are doing it, including ours, that have had so many successes, so many saved lives, that they've decided to go forward and do that. And once again, that was because the board gave us permission to go and try something that a lot of other places were a little bit nervous about doing. And it obviously is a real positive thing. And it's being recognized as that, and that's why it's going to be implemented much across all of Montgomery County.
And I know that our second alarmers, John Klink's here today too, so I don't know if you want to have the second alarmers provide some information about that as well for the next meeting. Thank you.
And while we're on that, Madam Chair, I just want to say that part of the reason that Abington was able to do that was because of not only the cooperation but the impetus from second alarmers. They initially there was some feeling amongst the responders, the EMTs, that about not doing that through police officers. But when we decided, after we got the board's blessing to do that, second alarmers jumped right in there. They not only helped train us, they actually are the ones that got us the naloxone to use for that. It was because of their connections and so on. They made that happen. And part of the reason that we were one of the departments in the county that was doing that was because of the cooperation and support that we got from second alarmers. So I don't want to go unnoticed or forget to mention that they played an important role in that, and the 5 or 6 people whose lives were saved by us, not to mention the many that are saved by second alarmers, but the 5 or 6 that OD'd and were about to die on the verge of death and were saved by the officers using naloxone. It's greatly because of the support of second alarmers as well.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll start with our regular agenda. PS1 is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2101, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 14, stop intersection, and Article 3, parking regulations, Section 25, parking prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, parking prohibited except certain hours, no stopping or standing, and Section 27, parking time limited, for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on November 12, 2015 at 7:30, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS2 is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2103, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking Regulations, Section 25, parking prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, parking prohibited except certain hours, no stopping or standing, for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on December 10th, 2015 at 7:30 p.m., and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Actually, I'd like to direct this to Chief Kelly. Chief, every month, we are adding more and more no parking areas, sections. The list seems to be getting longer every month. And obviously, there's an expectation of enforcement. Do we have enough people to cover all of this? Because the list is growing and growing. And for the first time, I have something on the list for next month, and I know that there's going to be a real expectation of enforcement there. So it's a concern. And I know it's budget time, so maybe it's something that we need to think about.
Commissioner, in many respects, I know that adds sometimes to the amount of work that needs to be done, and they need to be enforced, there's no question about that. But as often as it adds to the problems, it also adds to the solutions, in the sense that the officers working the beats want to clean up those problems that are causing the neighbors' problems, people parking too close to the corner, which sometimes causes accidents or inconvenience for citizens. So in many cases, we're really right behind and supportive of those requests, because it really does solve problems, and in many cases, they probably should have been put in long ago. And so we're fine with that, and we don't have, and it's important that everyone understands, we don't have special parking enforcement officers that go and handle all of these ones at the ends of streets and no parking areas and so on. But that's the responsibility of the beat officers that are patrolling your wards and our beats. And so they'll be doing that as part of their patrol, and we can continue to do that as part of the service that we provide. And they're in the neighborhoods anyway, and it won't get the same special attention as if we had specific parking enforcement officers did nothing but go to those spots. But of course, there's so many of those spots, you couldn't have that being done anyway. So it's being done by the beat officers in their beats, and it's something we're happy to do, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments from commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS3 is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2104 for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on December 10th. This is a capital project for county radio purchases. And do we have an explanation for that at all? Do you want to?
Madam Chairman, this is a program the county's been working on for a number of years, and basically replace all the police radios throughout the county. The county's agreed to obtain financing on behalf of the local municipalities and cover any interest associated with those radios. The municipalities will be responsible for the principal and payback period of 5 years. The township has proactively begun funding for this expense several years ago. It's projected for our police department to be approximately $363,000. We currently have over two-thirds of that money already saved and put away in a permanent improvement fund. So the ordinance allows us basically to participate in the program and move forward as they're going to be placing out an order at the end of the year with receipt sometime in 2016.
And is there any comment about the fire department or second alarmers?
The portion for the fire department, there's a small portion, some of our fire departments have requested radios that don't incur the cost for those radios, and the issue is compatibility with the new radios. There's some concerns their older radios might not be compatible, so they're looking for a minimum number so they can maintain communications in the event there's a problem, but they will assume that cost. The portion for second alarmers will be assumed 100% by second alarmers, and township will not be responsible for any portion of that cost.
Any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Gillespie?
I just had one question. It says something about a discount. I mean, is it a big discount? I'm just curious.
Because it's a joint purchase and the number of radios involved, the county is getting the radios at a substantial discount. I don't know the exact number. If we were to go out on our own versus the countywide purchasing, obviously we'd be paying a much higher price. I can't give you the exact percentage higher, but it is a substantial savings for the township.
Okay, great.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Myers?
Just a quick question. Chief, will this make it so that everyone can talk to everyone on the same band or whatever, so that everyone can communicate? Is that?
Not on their primary channel, Commissioner, but on other channels that are made to be crosstalk from municipality to municipality. Yes. We have much of that capability now, but it'll be advanced by that. And the big difference here, and the reason why it's necessary for us to go out and get all new radios, is that the county's putting in the entire new infrastructure all across the county. And in many respects, that's considerably more expensive than the radios themselves. The radios we have to buy at the municipal level, but the whole infrastructure, all of the computers and antenna and receivers and all of those issues are being handled. That cost is being borne entirely by the county. And so because that's a whole new system, that's why we all have to buy the new radios.
Any other commissioners? Staff or audience? Hearing none, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Laura,
We didn't second the motion? Did we second that motion?
No, it wasn't second.
No, it wasn't moved yet, I don't think.
Sorry.
And I so move.
Yeah, there you go. So, go ahead.
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Yes.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So I just wanted a clarification. I may not have understood correctly, but Mr. Lefevre said we had two-thirds of that already put away. So my question is, was that a budget item, and was it put away as a budget item, or did we cull from everywhere that we could, which you know is my bugaboo? Especially as far as the OPEB goes, is that we do our budget and our culling transparently. So did that money come because it was budgeted in, or did we cull from here and there and put it together?
Each of our contributions were budgeted in the capital budget and deposited in the permanent improvement fund as part of the annual budget process.
So as for, in other words, they were budgeted for that, or they were leftovers? The two-thirds that came, was it budgeted, or was it?
Let me speak a little slower.
Okay.
Specifically budgeted for the radio purchase in the capital budget and contributed into the permanent improvement fund.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioners, as you know, when we just did the capital budget, and if you recall, we have in there items that we're purchasing wholly in 1 year, but we try to think ahead when we see major purchases coming up. Obviously, some of these are astronomical purchases that would break the bank to try to do in 1 year. So when we see them coming, we come to you and build it each year. So it comes in the budget, you approve it each year in advance, so it's clearly budgeted, and then it builds up until the point where it reaches a certain point, and then we're able to make the overall purchase. So these additions have been made each of the previous years. You approved prior to that year, and prior to it going in that year.
Any other comments from staff or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS4 is for discussion only on the portable electronic speed signs, and I'm turning it over to Chief Kelly? Oh.
Madam Chair, as you know, this was brought up by the member of the board. If you'd like for him to start that off, and then Officer Alfred will talk about it as well as a method to help us with our traffic enforcement program. Commissioner, I don't know if you want to make some comments first.
Sure, thank you. So this is something that I know a few people have seen. I happened to see it, I think I was in Quakertown, driving, and oddly enough pulled into someone's driveway to take a picture of it, which I'm glad, Chief Kelly, you were not notified that they were trying to arrest me for trespassing on their property, but that was, we got away with that one. And then I know we saw it on the capped ride. It basically, if you remember from the last meeting, is about the size of a regular speed limit sign. Would you say a little bit larger than a speed limit sign? Officer Freed? Yeah.
It's about the same size.
It's about the same size of a speed limit sign. It's portable. It takes less people to install it. One of the things that really struck me about it is in Ward 3, just like in many of our wards, we have narrower streets. And if you have a narrow street, it's hard to put that larger trailer-based speed device there. Also, something that I found out today, I'm sure Officer Freed can speak to more, is that we are limited in the time of year that we can use the larger device. So when it's snow and ice, we're unable to deploy that. This would be able to be deployed year-round. It also has the ability to operate in a stealth mode. The biggest thing that speaks to me is I think it's more efficient. It would allow our officers to have another tool in dealing with what has to be a township-wide issue that I can tell you that I've heard it many times. I'm sure every commissioner has heard, speeding is an issue somewhere in their ward. If it's not an issue somewhere in their ward, then probably your residents don't have cars, and I don't think that that's the case. So this, to me, is a tool that we can put in the hands of our police department. I think it's a good use of technology. I think it's a good use of equipment that will help to not only make our streets safer, but more specifically, assist our police department in providing the top-level services that they provide. And I know, Al, you have other, Officer Freed, I'm sorry, you have other things to add. So if you could get more technical.
Well, I don't know how much more technical I'll be, but I'll add some things to it. We had actually been looking at these for the past couple of years, and Commissioner Jones came to us after he was on his last motorcycle ride as we passed one going through North Wales Borough. Some of the advantages that this provides over the speed court, Commissioner Jones has already covered. We have a lot of streets that are narrow, and also, as you know, a lot of streets that have parking issues already. And quite frankly, at times, it's very difficult to take that speed court out on some of the back streets in the township here and find a spot that we can set that up where it's not interfering with traffic or blocking somebody's driveway access or vision as they're trying to get out of their driveway or across street. So these would actually help that case. These attach right to a pole with a bracket, basically like our radar survey boxes do. Nice thing is we don't have to hook this up to a trailer hitch and haul it around. We can pretty much throw it in the trunk of the car and take it out to where we want to install it and put it up on a pole pretty quickly. It has some nice features to it. It does collect data. However, it only collects data in one direction. But that can come in handy at times based on the fact that you can set it in two different modes. One mode obviously displays the speed on the speed limit sign, so we could set it up for a week or so that people are aware that the sign's up there, it flashes their speed. And then the second week we may keep it out there. They have what they call a stealth mode, where it actually shuts the speed limit off, but it still collects the data. So it would make it pretty easy to compare what the speeds were while people saw the flashing sign and what they were when they didn't think the sign was working or the speed wasn't being shown on the display. There's also a setting on here where you can set the speed at once you get it to a limit where you want the cars to start slowing down. We're making it obvious how fast they're going. A strobe light will flash, which will alert the driver that they're exceeding the limit by more than what they should be. So that's a nice feature. There's also a feature on this. It's pretty much like a governor on a vehicle, where we can set a speed so that we don't run into the problem with kids trying to see how high they can get the speed limit sign to go. It'll actually shut it off at say you set it at 55 miles per hour. Once they get to 55, it automatically shuts off. And, they can't see that they got it up to 99 or 100 or whatever they may be trying to get it to. So that's also a nice feature. But again, the biggest thing, again, is there's a lot of roadways. We get a lot of requests from people for the speed cart, and again, it's difficult to get it out there. This would make it more accessible to some of the back streets. Also, we run into problems with the speed carts during the winter. We usually don't put them out because we never know when it's going to snow or be icy, and to put those out on the road causes an extra hazard, number one, and number two, if it ends up that, snow plows have to get out, it causes issues with snow plows. So this would allow us to put it on a post or a pole next to the street. It wouldn't interfere with any of that, and we could pretty much do something all year round in inclement weather. So that's pretty much what we're looking at as far as the speed sign goes.
Price?
Price. The price, they run approximately $3,000 a piece, and that includes everything, the data collection, the mounts, and the straps to put them on the pole. So.
You answered two of my three questions with that. So it's $3,000 each, though?
Yes.
Okay. And do you, from that, the one that has data, collection, have they ever had any effectiveness study? Like, has it been shown to, if they exist different places, that it actually reduces people's speeding?
It pretty much works like the speed cart. They slow down for a portion of the time, but once they get used to that, there's not a police officer sitting down the street, or there's not going to be some enforcement, some type of enforcement there.
So I had actually heard exactly what you said about kids trying to get it
right.
to go up, but I didn't know there was a feature to. I guess they had it at one point here somewhere where that happened, and I'm not sure what street that was on. But one last question, and I'll turn it over. I know people have their hands up. How would we decide where to put them, since they're so portable, and how long do they have to go up? So if I wanted one in my neighborhood, and all 15 of us have had reports, so we all want it, how would we decide?
Well, basically that would go just like the radar boxes go. We develop a list, and we just go down the list in the order that we get the requests.
And then you have to stay up for like 2 weeks to be effective?
Well, it would all depend on what you would want. If you would want the comparison, we'd try to leave it up for a 2-week period where 1 week it actually displayed the speeds, and the next week we would shut it off and see what the comparison was there. And I mean, if you just wanted it up for a period of time just so people knew that, their speeds were being watched, depending on how many other requests we have, we could leave it up 1 week, and then, if we don't have that many requests, we can always keep it up a second week.
Commissioner Klein? Oh, let me start with the committee. Commissioner DePacido.
Sure, thanks. Commissioner Jones, what district or municipality did you say you saw the signs first?
I first saw it in Quakertown on my way to the Q-Mart. I then, by the way, for sticky buns, for the record. I then saw it, Officer Freed, I forget which township, because I was being safe and riding a motorcycle. I didn't want to look too much at traffic signs. Do you recall which township that it was on the capped ride?
That was North Walesboro.
Wales.
Thank you.
I've actually seen them in Ambler.
Is it possible to solicit some information from their police departments to see how they're faring with these signs? I think you get a...
Sure, I can check. I know the sign that North Walesboro has is totally different from the one we have here, but I can call them and find out.
Okay. And another question, how many did we anticipate on obtaining? Because I know that card is hard to get.
I believe we were looking at 2 to start off, and then that would give us the 2 carts and the 2 portable signs.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? Other commissioners? Commissioner
We
Klein?
have questions.
Jimmy asked my questions.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
Al, if these were in use, there are no data that are displayed or collected by the sign that could be used for any enforcement purposes, right? That falls under the same restriction on local use of radar enforcement. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. It would be for survey purposes only.
Okay. I have to ask, this might be a question for Commissioner Jones. What is stealth mode?
Stealth mode.
I gotta know.
I'm going to. This will be like a quiz, Officer Freed. Stealth mode is when the actual speed is not visible, but the data is being collected. So if you were driving and you were aware of the sign, that you had seen it flashing before, you would drive and see that there were no numbers being shown and assume that the sign was dormant. So it would actually be still calculating your speed to determine. And I think to Commissioner DiPlacido's question, I think this for our specific township would be a really good way to get kind of some pre and post data on sign efficacy also, and maybe assist in what other types of signage may help to reduce speeding as well.
Like the control group, basically, setting up the...
I was going to say that, but you said it so much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Klein?
Yeah. Would these qualify for the Arley grants that they're giving out at the state for the red light cameras?
I'm not sure. I would have to look into that. My impression of the Arley grants is it's more of an intersection revision or something along that line. I don't know if these fit into that, but I can check.
And my understanding was it has anything to do with any traffic enforcement or safety issues.
I will check it. I will check into that.
Sure. Okay.
I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Jones?
Thank you. I'd very much like to see, quite frankly, us move sooner rather than later on this. I think that it is such an issue that just from a pure math point of view, it would more than double the coverage because we would actually have twice the number of units, but we'd actually be able to use these units year-round. So I'm assuming, Officer Freed, that when you say they're not used in winter months, would that be more like January, February, or December, January, February, or?
Yeah, we kind of watch the weather reports and see how that's going to go, but normally, if we can keep them up in December, we'll do that, but usually January through at least the beginning of March, we usually don't put them out.
So we probably, right now, we get the equivalent of 20 months' worth of usage, because we have 2 carts, 10 months each cart, and to add these would take that up to 44 months of usage.
I'll add that real quick in my head, but that sounds good, yes.
Next question, do you know how much the carts cost?
I don't know a specific price, but depending on what style you get, they range anywhere from $3,500 on up to $15,000, $20,000.
And I would assume that the 3,500 would not have the same level of features and bells and whistles?
That is correct. That's basically a small sign on wheels that you can throw out. The more advanced ones are obviously more expensive.
Okay. So the one that we have would be in which category? The one that we currently have?
That's my guess is that's probably in the $5,500 to $7,000 range.
Okay. So for less than the cost of one, we get double the protection. I would like to, my thing would be sooner rather than later, only because it's the same, we know that we're going to get at bare minimum a similar level of efficacy for basically half the cost, because we get two for less than the price of what we pay for one.
If we are to, I think this is what Commissioner, you're
Based-
talking about the budgeting of it?
Based on the level of the board's interest this evening, if the committee is in agreement, I'd like to include or continue the discussion at our next budget meeting on November 10th and see if we can incorporate this expense as part of the permanent improvement budget for 2016.
Is there room in contingency for it now?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking there, Commissioner.
Could it be pulled, could, say, $5,000 be pulled from contingency now?
If the majority of the board wanted to do so, yes.
I don't understand. I mean, we're talking about a budget year that's coming up in 60 days, and we're working through a budget process that should be worked into the budget at this point instead of taking any contingency.
How long does it take to get them? I mean, are these something that have to be ordered and?
Yeah, I would have to look into that. I'm not sure. I'm sure once we order them, they would be here probably in a matter of weeks, would be my guess.
So if we wait for the budget process, we can still get it in the winter months?
I would think so.
And then we could also look into the possibility of grant funding.
You think there's a possibility that you could knock it down to $5,000 for two?
I can see what we can do.
Commissioner Myers?
Thank you. I'm not quite sure what all the debate about the money is. We're talking about $3,000, which could easily come out of contingency. The number one complaint, I don't want to speak for all commissioners, but I know the number one complaint that I get is they're speeding on my street. And every year we promise to look for and find traffic calming methods. And here we have one at a very reasonable cost that every ward can have a chance at using via the list. This is an opportunity, and we, for briefly, got to see a sample last month. I'd like to see us purchase it right away. I'd like to see somebody make the motion and it go to the full board next week, or the week after, whenever. I know we're a week off. I mean, we're talking a $3,000 purchase.
6,000 if we get to.
Possibly $5,000, depending upon the...
And I will absolutely offer Ward 8 to use as a sample and a test for the device. I have plenty of streets.
I'll offer my street. How about that?
I just have.
Quite honestly, this is a no-brainer.
Would that motion would have to come from someone on the committee, or could it come?
I know.
Could I make the motion?
Can I just do have a comment when you said, or somebody said, could we wait? But then we'd be getting January and February, which are the months we can't use it. So it would be waiting actually for March.
No, that's when you can use it.
You can use them.
Oh, you can use it in the winter. Oh, then I'm backwards.
Use them in the winter months.
Oh, good. That's a good thing. I'm just backwards.
Unless Alfred
But we
can't,
need
Officer Freed can't climb over those snowbanks to put them up.
Commissioner Kalinowski and Commissioners, we both could use that.
On Jenkintown Road, I know that.
Honest to goodness, we have nothing that fits there.
Signs.
Di Placido.
I agree with Commissioner Myers. I think it's any measure that we find to try to calm traffic down in our township is a great thing, but I'm still curious to see if it works. I'd like to see other data from other municipalities that are using them. $3,000 sometimes is a no-brainer, but I'd hate to install something that is supposed to be used for the safety of our residents, our pedestrians, and our drivers, and then find out that it doesn't really work for a lot of communities. So I just want a little bit more information on it before it comes through.
Well,
I don't understand what the rush is. I mean, we haven't had them. We have two carts that can still be used during the months that we don't have winter, and we could find out if there's grant funding. I mean, we're talking about looking at next month, a month, in January when we have it in the budget. I mean, this is a rush. I mean, it's a good idea. I agree with the idea, but why don't we find out more information like Commissioner DePlacido talked about, and let's see what other options there are out there for funding and whether we can fit it into the budget for next year. I mean,
Can we,
we're going to open the door up to anybody coming up with a potential idea and then just rush to judgment on it? Is that what you're suggesting, Commissioner Myers?
I hardly think this is a rush to judgment. We've been using the cart for years. This is a technological advancement on the cart that we've been using. And Tuesday is Election Day. And I don't know about you, but
Well,
I'll be at
exactly.
my poll.
Tuesday is Election Day.
I will be at my poll. May I finish? I'll be at my poll all day on Election Day. I am not up for re-election. And the number one complaint that I will receive from residents on Tuesday, from the many people that I will be talking to, and I assume that you will all be the same, is speeding on my street, and I would really like to be able to say, we are working on a solution and we're going to try something.
And we are working on a solution.
I don't think the data is going to make a huge difference. We've already been doing it.
one other thing, though, that I would like to add. The data might not make a difference, and you're absolutely right. But I think we have to have some kind of plan on who's going to get it, because you're right. Everybody's going to get their list. I want it on my street. You know, you were just saying, kiddingly, I think, that you would offer your ward as the test place. But
No,
I mean, we
I wasn't
all
kidding.
have-
I wasn't kidding.
Okay. Well, you may not be kidding, but we all feel that way, because we all have that complaint. So if I have 20 streets after they watch this meeting tonight who contact me and they all want it, and so does everybody else, now we have 150 or 160 or whatever the number is of streets, how are you going to decide this one or two? You know, I think we have to have a procedure in place before we start thinking about we're going to put it here or there, or it's a little bit different than the cart, because when I see the cart anyway, it's at more major intersections. I have never seen the cart on my street. I've had a lot of complaints about speeding on my street. You know, so I think there has to be some kind of idea of how it's going to be used. So,
Can I just,
that's my 2 cents on that. Commissioner Gillespie.
yeah, just one other comment. Well, we have the other two devices that are, what are they called? Are they radar, or what are those that hang on the poles? You know, that tell how many cars are speeding. What are they called, Officer Freed?
They're survey boxes.
Okay, we didn't have anything in place kind of then. We just went by whoever signed up for the survey box, kind of the same idea, correct? We just went by who called in, and you got on a list. Same idea?
Same idea.
I don't,
comment?
is it the
Anybody?
same idea?
It
I
was
mean,
the
I
same
didn't know
idea,
that,
yeah.
because, again,
Yeah.
that box has, you know, has never been put on my street or
Yeah,
some
you
of the
have to
streets
ask.
that excuse me, but I have asked about speeding at various intersections. That has never been a solution that has happened at those intersections. So I assumed that was because they were smaller residential streets. But I think this thing could possibly be on smaller residential streets. So there is a little bit different. In my opinion, it's a little bit different. Yes, Commissioner Jones?
So I think we're kind of all saying a similar thing. So if I just do the basic math and I say $6,000 for the large boxes, and I don't know, Officer Freed or Chief Kelly, is there a shelf life for that cart? How long are they anticipated to last? I guess my question is there going to come a time in the near future, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, when whether or not we were to do something like this, they're going to need to be replaced?
Commissioner, because our vehicle maintenance does a good job keeping things going, both of them are pretty old as it is already, but they get out there and do the job, and I don't see us having a specific time in the future where we're going to be removing it, but eventually we will. They're both pretty old at this point. Al, from your information, I know you're the one that moves them and has to deal with them, the batteries and stuff. Where do we stand with that situation?
Now, batteries, usually the highway department's pretty good about replacing them or doing what needs to be done to keep those up and running. So they're still in good working order at this point.
So my thought, regardless, is we have 2 times 6 is $12,000 for 2. To Commissioner Schreiber's point, having two of these in any way, shape, or form, I think may be something that's looked at as almost like a pilot program. One of the pieces of brief information that I've seen from the Journal of Transportation and Technology says that in their deployment, speeding is reported to have been reduced in specific traffic situations. However, there are those are static situations, so we know that traffic in any neighborhood changes from place to place, and there's certain dynamic things that take place that may change the traffic pattern in one neighborhood or municipality as opposed to another. So even the best studies can be potentially flawed. So I would think that having two of these units would be a good investment in a pilot program. Give us a good set of data. Is it in a potentially expensive pilot program? Potentially, but it would seem to me that at the very least we would be about at the efficacy that we are with the current configuration that we're using.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
That just gave me an idea. Al, maybe you know the answer to this. Are these units available for rental, for lease?
I am not sure. I would have to look into that.
Or trial, maybe.
Or try?
That was my
Jimmy,
question, Commissioner.
Could be because very great minds.
I'm all for a pilot program.
We
I
had
really
the
am.
trial.
We had the trial?
Yeah.
Where was the trial?
On your motorcycle?
No,
Ward three?
I think Officer Free, we were allowed to hold on to them last month. It was when it was initially brought up.
Okay, I must have missed that.
I'm being somewhat facetious. I think that their trial was that they let us hold on to a sample unit.
All right. Well, I'm all about a pilot study. I really am, but I'm not about a quick fix or a Band-Aid. I need more data. I'd like to see more data, and you would reference some good reports. I'd still like to read them, whether they're good reports or bad reports. I just want to know that we're doing the right thing and making the right purchases.
There's different ones, too, right? You said, Officer Free, some of them have different features, so there's different...
Yeah, that's correct.
Wouldn't it be, why don't we try to see, can we get more definitive pricing and also timeframes for availability of these units?
Sure.
And also look into the potential grant funding. And, I mean, is it possible that one of these other municipalities would let us borrow one?
I will look into that.
Any comments from staff or audience? Hearing none? Discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
Move on to PS5. And that's the expanded use of cameras. I believe this was originally from Commissioner Bowman. Do you want to discuss that?
Yes, I did ask that this item be put into the public safety agenda for an upcoming meeting. I'm glad to see it in there. I think we've all seen the use of cameras in Philadelphia, in London, in public places. I was thinking of Roslyn Park. There is not a lot of crime, but there's bike thefts, occasional phone thefts, minor robberies, for lack of a better term, quite frankly. And I think cameras in some sections would be good, not only for what they might catch immediately, but for people passing through the camera after something has happened, maybe in a dark area of the same park, for potential identification of people who may have committed offenses outside of the camera's range. I've seen Philadelphia's kind of camera room that they have on some public places, and I don't know if other people have problems at their park, but constituents have come to me about issues at Roslyn Park, graffiti on some of our new bridge there, and the rocks that we put out for aesthetic purposes. And I thought this was a possible response, and just bringing it up. I would certainly support it and the expenditure of funds. I don't know if the chief has any cameras presently in operation at any locations in the township, but I think they're a valuable tool. That's all I said.
Thank you. Don't we have a camera at the skate park, we have a camera.
We have two cameras at the skate park. One's a pan-tilt zoom that moves around, focuses in and out. The other one is fixed, but it can zoom in and out. It has been very useful for us. A number of times the police have responded to our calls when we've had incidents occur in the park in front of the cameras and stop things that could have become worse incidents. So it's proven to be very helpful to us.
Do you know, or maybe the chief knows, the cost of those cameras?
The technology today is it's so advanced that you can get anything from a few $100s to thousands. There's uplinks to satellites. You still have to pay a monthly fee for that uplink, or you can go through a high-speed internet connection, which is how we do it at Roslyn, and that's approximately $98 a month beside the cost of the camera. So you have to have someplace you can put the high-speed internet, or if you don't, you go to the satellite uplink. Our park rangers have them all on their smartphones. I have them on my smartphone. I know that the program is in the radio room at the township. Probably the police officer who patrols that particular area also has it on their phones. So it's very useful for us, and people can be on one with only two park rangers, and one of them's here, well, two of them here, three of them here tonight. That they can be on one side of the township and check what's going on at the skate park. And if they see something happening, they can get right over there without having to be called. So they can be like we put in $8,000 in the capital for Pembroke Pool and the same amount for Crestmont Pool, because as you know, there's slip and falls, there's teenager incidents, there's people that say this happened, that happened, and we would be able to
It's
look at it.
$8,000 per pool, or $8,000?
$8,000 per pool, and that includes the cost of the cameras. We already have internet connections there, so we wouldn't have to pay for that part. But the cameras, we would need at least 3 cameras to view all the areas. So it depends on what you want to do and how involved. We've been working with a company for a number of years who provides us with solutions when we have issues, and so they make suggestions. But it all depends on how far you want to go with it.
Trevor?
Commissioner Klein.
Does it store, I assume it stores a certain amount of information?
We have a DVR, and the DVR can store, I forget how many gigs of memory, and then it overwrites. It's approximately about a month's worth of video, and the video occurs in segments so that it only operates when something is in front of the camera. It's infrared detected, and so you don't get you get a continuous video, but it's chopped into segments.
Yes, it's not taking constant. It's not taking.
Correct.
It's not constant streaming. Or constant video. It's not frame by frame. It's taking every so many fractions of a second.
Correct, and then it does save it over the course of a month.
And do you have the ability to offload the information? Or
Absolutely.
Do you offload the information? Or once the
yes
month
and
is
yes.
up?
Yes, we have, and it does.
And how much of that are you saving? I realize you may offload it if there was an incident that happened and you need to get that segment of information, but do you save more than that month in any fashion, or once that month is up,
It gets overwritten, yeah. No, we don't normally save it unless there's an incident that we have video of. We don't have the capability of the storage right now for that. I mean, that's
Right.
additional expense.
And one last question, have you ever had an incident where you needed that further than a month, or is it that if something happens, you're collecting that pretty quickly and saving it?
We usually, if there's an incident, particularly in that area, we usually hear from somebody within a week or two.
Right.
The police usually say, hey, the other day there was this incident. And so if we know the date and the time, we can go back and review that segment of film. If we have it on the film, then we offload it and save it and give it to the police or whoever needs it.
Right.
But normally we don't save that amount, because most of the time it's nothing. It's just people being in the park doing things in the park.
And I just have one request, is, it sounds like a good idea. I'd be interested to know how many cameras and where we would have to have them. Obviously what we talked about was the cost of them. I guess we would center that on areas that we've had issues. I know there's been some graffiti issues and vandalism problems in some of the parks. But I'd be curious to see what the cost is on this whole thing.
Again, it depends on how many cameras, the type of cameras. the type of upload or the type of internet connection you have, and how many cameras. So I know at Roslyn, as Commissioner Bowman was saying, if we had maybe 2 more cameras, it would cover probably 80% of that park, and be able to see who's doing what where. Pembroke is a different story because it's a very linear park.
Right.
Each park has its own issues as far as putting cameras in.
It brings up one last question. So is the definition on the camera, I know some like Roslyn Park has ball fields.
HD.
And if somebody's doing something in the middle of the field and the camera's on a pole that's on the edge of the field, are you able to zoom in and get enough definition on on a description of that person?
The camera, we just upgraded, I think it was earlier this year, to HD, because again, the technology changes. They're now digital, we were using analog, and so the definition is incredibly better. I mean, we can read if a car is parked in the Roslyn Boys Club parking lot, we can read the license plate from the skate park.
Okay, thank you.
But that's, if you buy a lower level camera, of course, you're not going to be able to do that.
Right. Okay.
Would there be...
Question.
Go ahead. Oh, did you have a question?
I did, real quick. I mean, a comment, I guess I would say. I would love to see them at Pembroke Park, because I hear different constituents say to me there's issues that go on there that the kids come home and tell me, or situations, and I'm sure you've heard them. We've seen them in our different SCARS report, things
Sure.
like that. I have 8 at the VFW, and they do work very well. They've helped us solve a lot of in-house issues and outside issues that we can go to the camera and look at a time and a specific period, and then they do work. And these run on 2-week cycles, so after 2 weeks, they're gone, and it just recycles itself every
Right.
2 weeks. So. But I would love to see them at Pembroke Park. I've heard constituents over the years say to me, not even just the pool area, the parking lots, the basketball courts, the tennis courts, are areas where they congregate, they hang out, the kids, and they're there late night playing basketball, and there is things that go on there. They're kids. So I would like to see that. Or at least, let's take this up as a concern.
It's a matter of just trying to figure out what locations you want them in, and then going back engineering it.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I'm going to wait.
Go ahead.
I'm good. Thank you. Just a suggestion. One of the things that we've done, because we have cameras also, is that you can actually have what the DVR gives you in terms of storage. For, I think, $200, you can get a 10 terabyte external hard drive. You almost daisy chain the hard drive onto the DVR, and it gives you a significantly longer amount of storage time. So you may decide that, policy-wise, we want to keep a year's worth of events, because we started doing similar things because sometimes something happens. For example, if it's winter break at a school and there's 3 weeks that go by and something happens, and then you come in 5 days later and figure out what happened, it may have overwritten itself. So you never know if somebody comes back 6 months from now and says, hey, look, this occurred at Pembroke Pool. $200 expenditure on top of spending $8,000 will really help you out. That's just a suggestion.
I'll get right with Nate on that.
It might be $239.
Well, that's a quick. How much gigabytes do you get for 30 days for one camera? Do you have an idea?
No, I'd have to check. It really depends on the number of events that it records.
Because Commissioner Jones is right. I mean, memory's fairly cheap, so.
That's true.
If it's something you're going to go down the line, if you give us the ability to store more space.
Nate, do you know what the gigs are on the DVR?
I don't know the quality of the video it takes.
It's good quality, but I mean, do you know so you need to know that.
Yeah, there's the resolution. There's a lot of factors that go into how big a video file is, and I think we can guess.
But I mean, we can probably check and see how much memory we've used in the past X number of weeks or whatever it is. But as Commissioner Jones is saying, if terabytes are $200, that's amazingly cheap compared to what they used to be.
It's 10.
10 terabytes, yeah.
1
I don't
terabyte
think
is
we have more than
54.
maybe 20 or 30 gigs on the DVR, so that's like, what, 50 times the amount. So, yeah, I'll look into that.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Thank you. Just a question, is there a grant for that? If we're going to be putting, I'm just asking, so since we could then put them in Pembroke and, the other parks?
And you might like the chief, since it's on public safety, I don't know if the chief was thinking to have them like in high-traffic areas, like in
Yeah.
Keswick Village and things like that, too.
Oh, Keswick Village is fine.
I mean, I would imagine before we move ahead with this, we'd have to figure out how many and where and all that. Are we just doing parks, certain areas of the parks? Are we going to look at crime rates certain places, and that's where we're going to put them? So, Commissioner Spiegelman.
I guess this is something of a thematic carryover from the previous discussion, but Doug, what the cameras that you currently have, I don't know what their level of portability is. I mean, no, they're not portable at all. It might be worth looking into if there are cameras. I mean, I know an internet connection is required, but if there are cameras that maybe are not so permanently fixed,
There are.
that might be an option for rotating and seeing, seeing what they're able to do, their efficacy in the various areas. Because, as was pointed out, a lot of people are going to want them.
There are portable ones. They're the ones that use a satellite uplink, and they can be moved from location to location. But again, they're probably $3,000 or $4,000 plus the monthly rate.
Are there portable ones that rely on an internet connection, but if there's an existing internet connection, they can just be... The cameras themselves are not cumbersome to move from place to place and just hook them up to the local area connection?
They can be, but I mean, they could probably tell you better how involved the local connection would be to make that local connection once you place the camera. Because there's obviously a lot of things you have to set up so that the feed goes from the camera to the internet connection and to where you want it to go. But yeah, most of the cameras are either or. So.
When Andy and I tried to set up the cameras wirelessly, it was not nearly as reliable as when we actually ran a Cat 5.
Gotcha.
You get a drone.
Duly noted.
So, I mean, it's something I probably could sit down with the chief and start coming up with a plan of where the places would be.
I'm thinking that in theory, even if we were able to purchase only a limited number of portable cameras, but we installed a Cat 5 infrastructure in various places, the cameras could still move and cover more ground at certain peak times of year. Just a thought. There are no parks in Ward 11, it's just a thought.
I was just saying real quick, we were in Charlotte this weekend for the Eagles game, and there was 3 drones that flew over the parks at all times. And not to say we have to do that, but to follow the tailgaters and to see what was going on. There was literally drones, you could see them in the air above you, filming what was going on in these tailgating parties.
That was probably
I want that.
Eagles fans.
I don't know. No, it was all this. They have a huge outdoor park, but there was 3 drones that circled this, and I thought that was pretty cool. But I don't know who set up the drones.
Drones are only about $1,200 a piece.
Yeah, they're only down to $1,200 now. So hey.
Oh, was it worth the trip to Charlotte, by the way?
Going with the friends I went, yes. The game, no.
Any other commissioner comments? Staff or audience? Chief, did you want to weigh in on this at all?
Commissioners, it's having ones that are movable and you can put when there's a problem is a tremendous asset. We don't have a lot of locations now that are screaming out that we need to monitor them by camera because we don't have any places that we have such vexing problems that we need to do that. I think that the parks and the board was wise in doing it at the skate park because we knew that was somewhat going to be a magnet for the potential of problems. And actually, the way that's been handled has been a model for many communities. Actually, have gotten rid of their skate parks because of the problems that it brought, because of the way our Parks and Recreation Department, with the guidance from the board, handled this in our skate park. We virtually have no problems there. considering the issues there and what an advantage that is. So obviously that was put there for a reason. I would say the same thing, we'd want to do that in Abington. We don't need to do it just because, but the advantage if we have them, and as a commissioner was talking about, to be able to be moved, that's something that is an asset, because when all of a sudden you have a problem that pops up, and from time to time we have problem areas that pop up, and we want to be able to do the monitoring, you can't go out and then start the whole process of buying the cameras and stuff like that then. So if my recommendation would be that if you were inclined to do that, we would research it, find out how mobile they really are, how much we could set them up so that they'd be able to be moved to wherever the hot spot was at a given time. If that's a possibility, then that's probably a wise investment that'll help us be able to focus in on a problem. And other than that, if you don't have a problem area that you really need to do it on, then it's just an economic issue that the board would decide either you want to do it or you don't. But my suggestion would be that the real need comes when you have one of those issues in a particular location. You can solve problems real quickly, very economically, if you have the equipment to be able to put in place and monitor that. In many cases, you can solve the problem in a matter of hours or days, rather than it being a problem that just goes on for a long period of time because you can't afford to put an officer there for 24/7.
Sounds like you just described Larry's office.
There are already cameras in there. He doesn't know about them.
Yeah, don't tell him.
Comments from the audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, and I do realize there are so many good things that have come from the cameras. But there's an interesting quote that says, "He who gives up I don't have this exactly right, but he who gives up his privacy for security deserves neither, and gets neither either." So one of the problems we have, in this entire country is that we had a government that began surveillance completely really against the law. They since have changed the law to make it legal, but it was not, and they lied to Congress, and they spent money that we had absolutely, I don't think anybody in this room has any clue how much money has been spent surveilling. I almost see, although I really recognize your good intentions, and they are good intentions, you intend to keep the people safe, and I know that that's what this conversation is about, so don't misunderstand me. But I do see you saying, well, we could use one here, well, we could use one here, well, we could use one there. A short while ago, we were just talking about at the library. Do we want somebody seeing everything that we do and everywhere that we go? And is it worth it in that sense? Because there is another side that you almost never see, and that side is that you have to trust your officials completely, 100%, because the information gained can often be used against people, and it can be used against good people, and often is. Read any book about activism or all of the things that are wrong with this country and the people that have tried to fix it. And surveillance played huge roles in undermining those things. The surveillance was always in the hands of the authorities that wanted the people doing the good things for the nation to go away. So those are things that need to be considered, and while I recognize your good intentions, honestly, I really believe that even in this conversation, we can see how quickly that gets out of control. And I'd like to know if in the budget we have a place, and online, I don't know where the new website is. I haven't seen hide nor hair of it lately, but if we have a place where we list all of the places that are under surveillance, and we also say how much that costs the taxpayers. Okay, because that's extremely important, and important for them to make the decision is both their privacy and the economics. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments on this before we move on? PS6 is trial extension of yellow lights. Turning it over to Chief Kelly.
Madam Chair, members of the board, as you know, this was requested by the members of the board. In just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Traffic Safety Manager Freed, who will tell you the locations that we've determined would be the most likely and logical places for us to do that. And he's already moved forward to request from PennDOT permission to do that, but I'll let him tell you about that, and then I'll come back after he's finished.
Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioners, again, at your request, they submitted 3 intersections to PennDOT, and at this time, they're doing an evaluation of what they won't let us do. The intersections we're looking at are Easton and Jenkintown Road, Easton and Old Welsh Road, and Susquehanna and Edge Hill Road. So those were the 3 intersections on the list that we developed that are comparable in crashes to the 3 red light camera intersections. So again, those 3 intersections were passed on to PennDOT, and we're going to do an evaluation on what they are going to allow us to do for the yellow light timing.
Can you just say what they are again? I'm sorry. Easton, Jenkintown.
Easton and Jenkintown, Easton and Old Welsh, and Susquehanna and Edge Hill.
Chief, did you say you wanted to say something else after?
Commissioners, actually, that covers it pretty much, and it would give us the opportunity to take a look at it and see if it achieves our traffic safety goals as well. Obviously, we can't do it without their permission, but we're hoping that, and we requested them to give us a chance to take a look at it and see if it helps the situation. At some point in the future, obviously, we could talk about the idea of combining that with or using that at the places where we have red light cameras. We're not recommending that at this point because we only have less than a year's data from the red light cameras, and so we agreed, I think, at the hearings that we needed to have more data to determine what's really going on there. So rather than it having multiple variables going on in any one location, our recommendation was to try this first at places where we don't have the red light cameras to see what the impact of that is, and then come back and do what we always do after we've got that data, sit down and talk about it and decide where we want to go from there.
Any comments from committee members? Commissioner Klein? Oh,
Yeah.
Commissioner DePlacido.
Right. Officer Freed, if these 3 intersections are, for lack of a better word, shot down by PennDOT, do we have a backup plan? Can we keep insisting that we try this but find another intersection to do it at?
I mean, I can inquire. Again, PennDOT sets the standards, and they make the final decision on what to do there. In my discussions with them, they said that our yellow light times already exceed the minimum requirements. So they're going to take that into mind when they look at us revising the current times. Because one thing they have to look at is if you extend the yellow light time for one direction, they have to take that time from another direction. So, to even out the flow of traffic, especially at peak hours, they have to take a look at that.
So these extended times that are longer than other places, did we apply for that at one time, or is that the way they were installed?
I can tell you, Public Works will probably be able to tell you better than that. When they submit permits for the traffic signals, PennDOT puts those yellow times in based on the roadway makeup, the speed of the road. Those are the criteria they use. So they added a little extra time to ours at intersections, and they're going to take a look and see what they can come up with.
Commissioner Klein?
Yeah, I appreciate you going through this process. Is it possible, before you were to actually change the yellow lights, if we can get that crash data for the last 3 years for those intersections, so we have some baseline of before you started changing the yellows, assuming PennDOT allows you to do that?
Yeah, we'll have that.
And in fact, already have the crash data from that time period. What we'd be doing, again, Commissioner, would be actually checking for the violation rate, and then we would do that right before like we normally do and have done those other
And you can provide that with to the board members, so we have that?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And once again, I appreciate you going through that process.
Sure.
So,
You know, and just in response to that, Commissioner, and we've all agreed on this here, I think, at the board meetings and public safety meetings, we try to try everything that shows potential to try to increase traffic safety or citizen safety in the community. The board encourages us to do that, and that's exactly what we do. And if something looks like it has potential, then we bring it to the board and we run it by you, and usually you give us the go-ahead to try it, because just like we're committed to trying to find the best ways to make our community safer, so is the board. And you encourage us to do that, and we try that, and sometimes things work out really well, sometimes maybe not as much, but then we go back and try to work it out. And so we're willing to try that, we're willing to try the science, we're willing to try anything the board wants us to do, provided that it meets the safety standards, of course, of the industry. But it's important that we say that, because sometimes both the board and the department have been accused of doing different things for other motivations. Our only motivation, of course, and this just needs to be said sometimes so the public understands that, is our only motivation is to try to make things safer. And that's everything that we've tried, or everything that we haven't tried has been because of our belief that they either would or would not make things safer.
thank you.
Commissioner Luker?
Just a brief question. It says a request has been received. Who made the request, Chief?
Made the request for?
It says in the comments section for this board action, a request has been received to extend the yellow light at non-red light camera intersections, but it doesn't say who made the request.
We talked about it at one of our meetings.
Okay, was it?
Actually, there were a number of commissioners that indicated they wanted us to move in that direction.
Right.
I don't remember exactly which ones, Commissioner, but
right.
I know a number indicated that, and actually said that it should be put on this month's public safety.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question, too? It's a little, maybe slightly off topic. Do we have any intersections where there's a delayed green, where the green on the other side doesn't start right away, the red, after it changes to red, and then there's a delay?
No, I don't believe we do. I know they have one in Jenkintown, but I don't believe we do.
I thought, too. I don't know who had their hand up first, but Commissioner Jones.
I appreciate that. I do, because of what Commissioner Kalinowski did to me before. I thank you. Officer Frieda, Chief Kelly, question. So you go to PennDOT, they make a decision. How far can you take things with any type of appellate procedure? And this is not just for this, but in anything that PennDOT does, because I would assume that they, and maybe I'm making the wrong assumption, how deep of a dive do they take when they look at their regulations and juxtapose that with a specific township's situation?
Commissioners, this is a rather unusual one. We're asking them to violate what is their normal procedures. We're asking them to give us a chance to take a look at it. So I think it's a little bit of a different one. Let's just run it by them, see what happens. We'll work on it for you. We'll see if we can't get them to, one way or another, to do it. And if we run into an impasse, then we'll come back and tell you about that. And then let's talk about the what-ifs at that point, if you don't mind.
Okay, but I just wanted to know, in general, are they, is it a decision? I guess my question is, when you work with PennDOT in general, is it a conversation or a decision? Does that make sense?
It is not a conversation.
Okay, so
they have standards, and they're engineering standards, and they apply those standards to the situation. And in their mind, there's very little discretion on their part or our part. They go along with the engineering standards, and that's where it is. So that's why normally it's pretty cut and dry.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll just add one quick thing, too. We'd like to throw everything back on PennDOT, but everything PennDOT, all their criteria is based on the federal motor laws and vehicle laws. So what they do on a state level is actually dictated on the federal level by the federal government. So,
Thank you for adding that. Commissioner Spiegelman?
I'm in favor of throwing both PennDOT and federal officials under the bus with regard to the relative inflexibility we run into. Well, I mean, looking at and there are 4 wards represented by these 3 intersections, and I know, seeing Edge Hill and Susquehanna there, I'm eagerly awaiting, first of all, PennDOT's decision on whether or not that intersection is, it's allowable to try this, but particularly the resultant before and after data, because it's very near and dear to my heart and my home.
It happens on all the different, like on Edge Hill and Susquehanna, it's both ways? You know, on Susquehanna and on Edge Hill? Okay. Just wanna make
Yeah,
sure.
one would assume all 4 ways.
Yeah. Commissioner Luther.
So let me, just one clarification. So there's going to be a difference in the intersections that have the red light cameras versus these intersections?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So now we're going to have inconsistencies throughout the township at the intersections on the traffic light configurations. Is that true?
Well, and that's one of the reasons why PennDOT doesn't like to do that.
That's right.
Commissioner. And
to me, it doesn't sound.
I'll send it.
And the other reason is because it's their belief, and there's certainly engineering reason to believe it, is that while it will make the number of violations go down in the short term, of course,
right.
You've lengthened the what used to be a red light violation suddenly isn't, because it's still a red light, still a yellow light rather than a red light. However, that's a temporary thing. As people get used to that, then they go back up. So in the case of the red traffic, the red light cameras, we know that we had violations going along at a certain point. When we installed the red light cameras, the number of violations went down dramatically to where they've been cut basically in half. And they will continue down to a certain point at which they plateau someplace below 50% of the original number. In the case of the extended yellow lights, you see it drop off immediately, the number of violations drop off immediately, but then you see it start to come back up. Now, how much back up and so on, we don't know the answer to that. That'd be the reason to try the experiment, obviously, but that is the phenomenon that you see with this particular thing that is touted as such a perfect solution, but it really isn't, because of the fact, that element, that it starts coming back up again.
Confused.
Do you have another question, Commissioner? Commissioner Jones.
Did you have another?
No, I'm just looking.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Luker, did you have another question?
No, not really. It seems like, going back to Commissioner Myers, it seems like the more questions you get asked are about the speeding throughout the streets in a residential area versus the intersections. And we're honing in on the intersections with inconsistencies developing, and I just think it's somewhat confusing. It's starting to get confusing to me just listening to it. But it sounds like there's going to be different light intervals at different intersections throughout the township. If that's true.
Just to make sure that it's clear, though, Commissioner, we're only talking about 3 intersections, and we're talking
But
about a
they're
very
major.
small amount. What is the amount that we're looking at? Al, I know we're only talking some fraction of a second, right? Is it a half, or do we have any idea what the interval increase we're looking at? Okay. Again, the engineers will be looking at that to determine what would be significant enough to make a difference, but not to throw everything totally out of whack. We're not talking about seconds, 3, 4, 5 seconds. We're talking about a portion of a second, probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones?
I defer to Commissioner Spiegelman.
I very much appreciate that. I guess I'll say deferral, deference. I don't know. This is just in response to President Luker's question. As I recall, it came up pretty repeatedly during the red light camera renewal debate. This idea of, is there another way to the same end? And I know there's been pressure, internal and external, on this notion of do extending the red lights do exactly what the red light cameras do without cameras and fines and GATSO, et cetera. And so I guess this is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the experiment. This is to see if there's a comparable effect, or what the effect will be. If it's what you said you think that it would probably be, or is it something more comparable to the red light cameras or whatnot? Am I correct in that answer to President Luker's question? Okay.
That's my understanding, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions or
I was-
comments?
Commissioner Jones.
Oh, I thought you had
I
changed
think I
your
used the wrong word choice.
You did.
He let me hog in.
I'll let him skip in line.
Yes.
You have one last question?
I have a kind of a question comment. So what I think I heard you say related to the difference between the two is just human behavior. So if I want to change the behavior, I may put in an intervention, extending the yellow light. But also to keep that behavior, I have to have some type of a consequence, either positive or negative. So the negative would be I get a fine, which we see if you violate in the traffic, the camera, right? It's kind of like if we had the money for every person that's stopped, the opposite of the traffic light that would probably be more effective for the red traffic light is for every person that's stopped at a traffic light correctly, if we gave them $150, we'd probably have a lot less infractions. Does that make sense? That you have to have a carrot or a stick. So I think what I hear you saying is the reason that that if you just have the extended yellow going down and then coming up is I get used to that change, but there is no carrot or stick. There is no carrot or stick to reinforce the behavior.
That's part of it, Commissioner, and the other part is it doesn't change the behavior. When you extend the yellow light, it doesn't change the driver's behavior. It just says what was a fine before, what was a violation before, is no longer a violation. So it's sort of like if they change the rules in baseball that you're safe if you make it to within 2 feet of first base before the ball gets there. You didn't make it before the ball gets there anymore. You didn't change the behavior. You didn't get there any faster. You just said that because you got close to the bag, we're now going to call you safe rather than when you were out. So that's why it really doesn't work, because the experts say it doesn't work is because it doesn't change behavior at all. It just says what was a violation is no longer a violation.
Thank you. My last question, Madam Chair, is it possible that you could also contact PennDOT and see if they could add the 2-foot rule in baseball for the Phillies? Because that might help us out.
Surely shortening the base path.
They have it, Commissioner, only it's in stealth mode right now.
Thank you.
Any comments from staff or audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. Help me understand what I'm missing here. I know, it's been a whole night of that. Oh, no, it's been 10 years of that. Okay, so I don't understand how we can be doing this at non-red light camera intersections. If we're trying to reduce the violations at a red light camera intersection, there's a camera there watching every car that goes through and counting every violation. At the other intersections, we don't park an officer there 24/7. I don't understand how possibly we can be comparing this by, I heard it said that the request was for non-red light camera intersections. As I recall that conversation, somebody asked, couldn't we change it? And Chief Kelly said, no, not in midstream, because we'd have too many variables. And then that same person, and I think I remember who it was, he was sitting sort of right there at the missing chair, and he said, well, couldn't we put it at non-red light camera intersections? That was a suggestion, not some wisdom, I think, that had ample time to be thought out. So if you have red light camera intersections counting violations all the time, you have an accurate measure. If you take non-red light camera intersections and park an officer there now and then, you don't have any variables that you can control. I'm completely flummoxed. I think you all got an email today about this, and I can't believe that you're doing this. The experiment needs to be on a red light camera intersection. So we have 3 of them. One of them, at least, should have extended yellows to see if that greatly reduces the numbers. And we have a year prior to also compare it with now. Can anybody answer that? Can Chief Kelly maybe answer that?
Madam Chair, the board can do whatever it likes, whatever it wants to do, or at least ask us to request it of PennDOT, and we'll be happy to do whatever the board wants, like always. Our recommendation was to not do that at the red light camera intersections at this time, because it was agreed at that meeting that we didn't have enough data. We didn't even have a year's worth of data, and because of the different months and the different seasons and so on, we didn't have enough data already. And so if we go and start changing it now, it's really going to make it even that much more complex. I would not be at all opposed to the idea at some point further down the road of doing that after we've seen what happens at the non-red light camera intersections, to then come back and try it at one or more of the red light camera intersections. What we're doing here is an experiment. We're trying to find out what's going to work in our community, in our situation. And to do that, you have to try different things. However, everybody that does those type of experiments always will tell you can't do more than one variable, change more than one variable at a time. Otherwise, you're not sure which variable caused the change.
What I hear now is that we are potentially discussing at some point in the future, if this works, maybe including the red light camera intersections, right? But we're checking out the non-red light cameras. And
if that's the board's pleasure, yes, we'd be open to that.
The email that I received said, and I quote, "It is a good idea to discuss reducing violation rates and crash risks at the non-camera intersections. The board may also discuss at the red light." So I think we're doing even what that email said. I think we're in compliance with, I think for once, everybody on this issue is kind of agreeing that there is the conversation about it. It's a good idea to check this out, which is what's being done. And then after checking it out, it would be a good idea to look at, do we want to do this at the red light camera intersections also? I don't think anybody's saying that they want to throw that baby out with the bathwater.
I understand what you're saying, but if I can explain, the part that I think you're not understanding is that at a non-red light camera intersection, you cannot control, even those past 3 years that was asked for. You asked for the past 3 years' data. You can't control how many hours the officer was sitting there. He didn't go at the same rush hour all the time and stay for the same, so you don't have any variables that aren't already varied. You need to control your variables in order to see if something improved. And what you can do here is have fewer decisions by the officer to issue a violation, or fewer officers' hours at the, I mean, we don't have a standard exact number of officer hours at those intersections. And that's the part that's missing. At a red light camera intersection, you have, I think it's 24/7, and you have a complete control on that variable and how many violations. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, one thing I will agree with that argument is it is confused.
I'm sorry.
Seriously, what?
It's confusing.
Did you have a last comment? Because we're really going to end
I
this.
didn't hear that word.
Perhaps to maybe nip this in the bud. You know, they passed 10 to 5. I understand that some commissioners are interested in the yellow light data. Can it be lengthened? As a proponent of the red light cameras, I don't care anything about any of the yellow light data, and nothing would take me off of supporting the red light cameras. So, yeah, maybe it's interesting. PennDOT, will they allow? I don't know. But as a proponent of them, no data is going to change my mind about the efficacy of the red light camera. Thanks.
Madam Chairman, I really need to make a point.
Okay, Commissioner
Thank
Myers.
you. The red light cameras were installed not just for speeding, but also because these were the highest accident intersections. We don't need, at the intersections that you may get permission to extend the yellow light, we don't need to have an officer there 24 hours. And correct me if I'm wrong, every accident will be reported and recorded. So that's the data that you're looking at, is the accidents.
I thought we were looking at violations. Is it violations?
The changing, extending of the yellow light, we know will reduce the violations, because what you're calling a violation before is not a violation afterwards. So you're not counting that. The only point is, does it reduce accidents? Well, exactly what you described, Commissioner Myers, is exactly the issue.
Thank you.
And that concludes our agenda this evening.
All right, it's my pleasure to call to order, with the bang of this gavel, the October 28th, 2015 Abington Township Public Affairs Committee meeting. And let us start with the roll call. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Commissioner Dr. Farron is excused tonight. We're going to start very quickly with the approval of the minutes. This is a motion to approve the minutes of the September 30th, 2015 Public Affairs Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any corrections, additions, et cetera? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. All right, we're going to change the order a little bit, and we're going to call up a very special guest. Actually, we're going to have Parks and Recreation Director Doug Wendell, I think, call up our very special guest and honoree or inductee, or I don't even know what you call it, tonight. So, Doug, do you want to go ahead and introduce?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, tonight I'd like to introduce Sean Blake. Sean is our recently promoted Corporal Ranger. He has been working for us since 2013, and as a result of the retirement of Bruce Hoffman recently, he was recommended by Ranger Sergeant DeStefano very strongly to be promoted to corporal. I certainly agreed with Sergeant DeStefano, and so as you see standing before you tonight is the recently promoted Sean Blake, Ranger Corporal. Sean does work full-time when he's not with us, and he works as a fraud investigator for RBS Citizens. So, Sean, if you'd like to say anything? You've been waiting patiently for a while.
Short speech. I'd just like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to be a corporal in the park ranger with Parks and Rec. It's moved here since 2012, December 2012 in the township. Me and my wife, after a lengthy house search, picked this township to live in. It's been a great experience in township to live in. Couldn't be happier with my choice. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for working for us. We enjoyed having you. And excuse me, Commissioner, and also in the back, besides is Ranger Sergeant Gregory DeStefano with our newly hired Elantra Bell, who is a ranger. Thank you.
I know Sean has left the room. First of all, congratulations. And
is he in Ward 11?
Want to say Sean is also, he's very humble, but he's also serves us as a firefighter, the Abington Fire Company. And I'll say it, Sean and his wife Jennifer are great Ward 11 neighbors. So congratulations to Sean. Doug, since you have the floor, why don't you tell us a little bit about Parks and Rec, shall you?
There are two things tonight I'd like to mention, both about Briarbush. One is that Briarbush recently received a $2,500 grant for programs for children with autism. That was one of the things that when we interviewed individuals, Greta had said she was very interested in. So they're moving forward with that, and it'll be, I'm sure, a great program. The next one is the Institute of Museum and Library Services has awarded the Friends of Briarbush with a grant for $23,700 for planning new exhibits inside the Bird Observatory. So that building is the original site of the Griscom's house, so I'm sure that it needs all the help it can get with updating and changing some of the events in there. So those were the two items. Thank you.
Doug, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our formal agenda now. We're going to start with PA1, resolution number 15-053 for Pico Green Region Grant for Jackson Park. There's a motion to approve resolution number 15-053, which authorizes the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to make application to the Natural Lands Trust for the 2016 Pico Green Region Grant in the amount of $10,000. The funding will be used for the establishment of meadows in Jackson Park, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Doug, is there anything you...
This is our second attempt for a PICO Green Region grant. We applied last year but did not receive it. It's very competitive. The last application that I put in was fairly wide-ranging, so this one I tried to pare down what we wanted to do, so we're going to be sticking to basically the meadows. And the Jackson family has very generously donated $25,000 for the improvements to the park. So some of that money will be going for the removal of the invasives this year and into next, and the remainder will be there as a match for the PICO Green Region should we get it. If we don't get it, we can still probably do the meadows, it's just maybe not to the extent that we were hoping. So
What is the match on this grant?
it's 1-to-1, so it's
Okay, so it's 1-to-1.
whatever we spend, they match, up to 10,000.
Any questions from commissioners on the committee? Commissioners in general? Commissioner Klein?
Doug, thanks for putting that together. Hopefully we'll get it this time. But you said the match is 1-to-1? I thought...
Well, it's the grants are up to 10,000. I've requested 10,000, so we have to match it with $10,000.
Okay.
So hopefully by making it more focused, we'll be more likely to get it. We've been pretty fortunate in the past between Briarbush and the township. So we should still be able to do meadows regardless.
And does the money that we're already putting in, the $40,000 that's already budgeted, does that count towards the match?
No, it has to be. You can't spend the money and then match their grant amount.
What happens if we haven't spent the money? Because I guess we're not doing we're not doing a portion of the invasive removal until next year.
Well, we're going to be spending around $13,000 for the invasive removal, which gives us, we had about $7,500 left from the planning portion. So we have, we had about $7,500 left, so we'll need about $6,000 out of that 25. So we'll have actually about $19,000 that we'll need to use some of that money for like replanting after we removed all the invasives. So we'll still have well over $10,000 by the end of next year. So we'll have more than the match that's required.
That's already allocated towards this project.
Correct. So it'll be a surplus of about $12,000, something like that, that we'll have sitting there waiting in case we do get the grant.
Thank you.
All right. Any further comments from staff? Audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? PA1 passes. Moving on to PA2, repair of elevator number 3 in Alverthorpe Manor. This is a motion to approve an expenditure of $9,797 from the contingency account number 01-01-002-5299 for the repair and return of service of elevator number 3 in Alverthorpe Manor, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. If there's any comment, one of them sounds pretty straightforward, but...
Well, the other thing I think it's important to know is that this elevator is the one that services our office. So the other 2 elevators are in extreme ends of the building, and they're not in great shape either, but they are serviceable. This one, the relays stopped working, and the only way to repair them is to replace all the relays, because it's an Otis elevator from 1939. And when the mechanic looked at it, he was just basically shaking his head. He felt it might have to be the whole elevator would have to be replaced, but he was able to come up with the parts that he needed that would fit on our system. And so this one provides ADA accessibility to our office, and we do have a fair number of people who come into our building who can't make it up that spiral staircase. So it just makes it easier for them to get into the elevator, plus the Art Center uses it for moving items from the basement to the different floors that they're on. So hopefully with this repaired, we'll be back in business, and then we'll be able to do the elevator test, the safety test and everything else.
All right. I don't know if you can apply for like classic car status for the elevator. Any questions or comments from commissioners on the committee? Commissioners in general?
Nope.
Commissioner DePlacido.
I just want to pass along a thank you from my wife for the passing of this or the forwarding of this motion. She works there, and she's very excited about having a little help transferring some of the stuff from different floors. Thanks.
She found out exactly what it's like to have to carry things up narrow staircases.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of movement about a month ago when they were moving from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor.
Yeah, I heard about that every night. Thanks.
And I heard it almost every night. Yes, so it would be very helpful.
Additional comments from commissioners, staff, audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. Just wanted to know, the ADA feature, the disabled people are able to use the other elevators now?
The other elevators are freight elevators, and they don't service a part of the building that the Bureau of Parks and Recreation is responsible for.
Okay.
One is the Art Center side, and that's their responsibility, and the other is the Shabbat and the Old York Road Historical Society, and they would be responsible for that. But anybody that can get to our office can get to the Shabbat or to the Old York Road Historical Society on the same floor, and the other ones are accessible from the bottom floors without use of elevators.
Thank you, Doug. All right, this motion has been moved and seconded. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bell, please, come on up.
I was joking,
I'm very laser focused.
I'm Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. I just have some questions concerning the terms and condition contract. First of all, what state is governing this contract? New Jersey or Pennsylvania?
What contract,
The terms and conditions of Otis, service and repair order.
Otis is going to, Otis is Pennsylvania, is in Pennsylvania, that's who we deal with. I haven't received a contract yet, because I don't have any money to even make a contract. But we have a maintenance contract with them for just basically lubricating the moving parts. The service part of it has to be done through another contract. They have to provide us with a proposal, which they did, and then we get a contract from them, but it's generally Pennsylvania as far as I know.
Can I get an answer eventually on that? Because I want to make sure that this contract that we're entering into is governed by Pennsylvania law and not New Jersey law, because there's a significant difference in contract.
I can check that, but I don't believe that Otis is a New Jersey company.
I think, I don't know where Otis is based. I mean, they have presence in almost
listed as Morristown.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, where?
I don't know.
Listed as Morristown, New Jersey.
If perhaps it's something our solicitor, I don't know if you'd be able to answer now, but certainly you can get an answer that can be given to Mr. Bell.
There's the Otis service and repair order that we have in front of us has no choice of laws provision, so that means it defaults to where the contract is made, which is Pennsylvania.
Okay? Also, in number 3, it says including attorney fees. Why isn't there a specific amount stated? If it's governed by Pennsylvania law.
In number 3, what?
In the
You know what, I'm going to...
Can I just go through these? And, the other one is number 4. Strike that. Number 5, it says our regular working hours or regular working days. Does that include travel time from New Jersey to the Pennsylvania on the site? Also in number 7, service is misspelled. And again, to the fullest extent, number 11, to the fullest extent permitted by law. And my question is, what law?
There's no choice of laws provision. It's governed by the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania where the contract was made.
And it's inspected, the units are inspected by the state of Pennsylvania on a regular basis by Labor and Industry.
Okay, so in number 9, when they're stating they're warranting the services, that warranty falls under Pennsylvania or New Jersey law?
They've been servicing these elevators since 1939, and I've never had an issue with.
Well, never doesn't mean we wouldn't have one. I just want to make sure I understand it.
I'd have to check with them.
I guess
this is just a proposal. This is a proposal right now. Will that go
Correct.
into?
It's a proposal.
Will this be the contract, or will we actually have a specific contract? What's that?
This would be the contract.
That would be the contract once it's,
So upon approval of this,
if we sign it.
if we were to go ahead with this proposal, this would get reviewed by the solicitor
We could certainly do
for
that.
compliance. Is that our normal step?
Well, it would be, but I would draw your attention to the fact that it says copyrighted Otis Elevator Company 2011. This is a pretty standard boilerplate service and repair order contract. Most of the things in here are pretty neutral. You don't really spend a lot of time arguing with them over a contract along these lines. Again, just briefly looking at some of the things, most of it is pretty boilerplate and pretty standard. It doesn't greatly benefit one side or the other. So, but it is governed by Pennsylvania law. So,
Okay.
Could they at least then spell service correctly then?
I can certainly ask him to change that.
Ask them to. I know Commissioner Farron isn't here, but he and I are both fairly obsessive when it comes to typos. So
It says it would be processed by your local office on the agreement here, or the estimate.
and the local office is Morristown.
No, by your local. By
okay.
your, it's right here on the proposal.
and it's the only game in town.
Sure. I will.
I understand that some of these contracts are boilerplate, but, you know, $9,700 to me for the township expenditure, you know, why not make it right? You know, boilerplate or no boilerplate, you know, I just think $9,700 in this township is worth at least a non-boilerplate type of contract. That's all. Thank you.
Well, two things. One is, candidly, with all due respect to Mr. Bell, I don't really think it's necessary. This contract is pretty simple and straightforward. Secondly, we had a question earlier tonight about trying to fight with PennDOT, which is nearly impossible. And most of you may know Otis Elevator is a giant in this industry, and very often they're the only game in town with respect to servicing Otis elevators. So at times you're at a little bit of a disadvantage, $9,700 or not, because if they're fixing an Otis elevator, you go to somebody else, it's going to cost you a whole lot more. So, but
Thank you, Mr. Clark. And Mr. Bell, thank you very much for your questions and comments. All right. If there are no further questions or comments, we will vote. PA2 has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, yes, with the correction of the typo.
I will take care of that.
PA2 moves forward into the future. PA3, Resolution Number 15-037, Substantial Amendment to Community Development Block Grant Budgets. So motion to adopt Resolution Number 15-037, approving the substantial amendment to Abington Township's Community Development Block Grant Budgets for fiscal years 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Director Strother, do you have any comments about this?
Very little, Commissioner. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. PA 13 is the motion to adopt Resolution 15037 to be heard at the November 12th Board of Commissioners meeting. Is a public hearing, which is a substantial amendment to various CDBG budget years.
Man, could you hold the microphone?
Sure.
This resolution is to be heard at the November 12th Board of Commissioners meeting at a public hearing for the items listed in your board package, and it was publicly advertised in the local newspaper as prescribed by law. Several of these activities that either have been completed, canceled, or the budget amounts have changed.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners on the committee?
No.
Commissioners in general? Staff? Audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So I had an obtuse question for Mr. Strother about when you advertise these, you folks right now are going to be passing along your recommendation to the commissioners to pass this. So when you advertise these things, this is also a very important speaking time, because if residents come and address you and tell you that they don't want this or they don't want that, then you have the ability here to change that and take that to the hearing, as your recommendation. The advertisement did not include that, and I would certainly like to see advertisements, give every opportunity that people have to speak to this. One of the things that sort of shocked us was that the money seemed to be so easily able to be moved around. We had, hearings and, not hearings, but discussion sessions and so on. At first we were told, well, this can't be moved and that can't be moved. And then we turned around and new ad was coming out and it was all moved. So for everybody for whom your residents may have some need to know this and some issue here, I think more needs to be explained. Again, it's not coming back to the residents. The residents don't know, just like with the zoning rewrites. The residents don't know and understand how these monies can help them and be used. And we saw many projects that we had recommended in our discussions not come forth in the changes that we saw. So we're not sure who's making the changes. So we still have more to learn on that, and I'll look forward to working with Mr. Strother on that. But again, more information to the people, and in terms of using the money when they speak, hopefully they will be heard. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further questions or comments? All right, hearing none. PA3, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? PA3 passes. PA4, Memorandum of Understanding for the Crest Manor Housing Project. This is a motion to approve the Township of Abington executing a Memorandum of Understanding with other cooperating governmental agencies for the proposed Crest Manor housing development. The Township will serve as the lead agency and will coordinate all project reviews for the completion and compliance with an environmental review, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Any comments from staff to start out with? All right. Questions?
You got an explanation?
Is there some background?
Sure. The Crest Manor Housing Project, which you approved at your last session, involves multiple government agencies. Two of those agencies have federal funds. The release of federal funds require an environmental review study be done before the release of those funds. Those two agencies is the Township of Abington with the CDBG, which are federal funds. There are absolutely no township funds involved in this project. The second agency is the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, which also has federal funds. It's home funds that we both have to perform an environmental review. Abington Township annually performs an environmental review on its annual CDBG budget. This is something that we do on a regular basis. We had a team meeting with all the lenders, the two primary lenders, meaning Abington Township and the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. With the federal funds, it was deemed that it was much more efficient for Abington Township to take the lead in putting together the environmental review document.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask for any questions from commissioners on the committee first. All right, commissioners in general. Commissioner Klein, I saw your hand.
So are there funds available for compensating your time for coordinating this?
Yes. Out of our annual budget, we have administrative time, but as an entitlement community of receiving it, the funds that we receive from the federal government from an annual basis is to go towards the benefit low to moderate income population, and this is what this does. And Abington Township is given allocation for administrative staff, meaning my time to execute that charge.
And this goes into that general pool of administrative money that we get out of the CDBG money?
Yes, sir.
So there's nothing set aside specifically in the Crest Manor budget, CDBG money that comes to us. It all comes out of the general pot that we get?
Yes. Whatever expenses that that is outside the township, the project pays for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
So, not to speak for Commissioner Klein, but what I think I'm hearing is, because of this project, would that put your time in excess of what it normally is?
No.
Okay, so this is part of
my daily task.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing the lights going on.
Yeah.
Let's come back here.
We're getting,
Yeah, so I just,
this is like when they play the music on the Oscars. I think we obviously in a hurry, this one up. Any other
thought
questions?
you were doing it, so.
Any other questions from Commissioner? Commissioner Myers?
Thank you. Who prepared this MOU?
We received it from HUD that was given to our consultant, which we worked with the entire team. And there's been input from the Housing Authority, Montgomery County Housing Authority, PHFA, Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, and the developer looked at it. So there were like 4 or 5, many hands have touched this, and it's going around for the past several months.
And Mr. Solicitor, did you review it as well?
Our office did. I did not personally review it, but our office did.
Your office did?
We did.
Okay. And you were fine, your office was fine with it?
Yes, as it's presented.
Okay. So everything's in line and the way it should be? And
Yeah, and again, I hate to use this word a third or fourth time tonight, but when you're dealing with federal dollars, the agreements, the MOUs that are put together are somewhat boilerplate and somewhat standard because there are federal dollars, and you have to comply with much of what the federal government wants because you're getting federal grant dollars. So that's what we deal with. We look at it, we make sure everything is in order, but there's not a whole lot of ability to change anything in here.
the acronym MOU is very scary to me.
Can be a beautiful thing sometimes.
All right, any other questions or comments from commissioners? Staff? Audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So is DEP or somebody else looking over this, the environmental review as well?
They're part of the application. They're a recipient. The environmental review is to reach out to all those entities that have involvement with the impact of the environment, and DEP was one of the entities that was notified.
Okay, because I just want to mention that we do have a history here. At St. Michael's, we had complete township approval from everybody there, and signatures and so on a septic system that was completely too small, 1/2 the size it needed to be. And in many other areas, we have had very questionable things. At the Colonnade, we've had MOUs that were not crafted right and led to humongous lawsuits and, conflicts of interest in that. And so it is not a comforting feeling to see us taking the lead on this particular thing when it's in our interest to have other people, to have a lot of other oversight as much as possible. So that's not comfortable. And also, I do see with 17 million plus, I don't even remember how much more than 17 million, but verging towards 18 million, we still have township time being spent, even though we've been told no township time. So if Mr. Struther was not using that time, he would have that time free to do other things. So that time still, I don't understand why that doesn't come out of the 17 million that they already have. It's a huge number for 46 homes. So I'll leave you with those comments.
Thank you for your comments. All right, any other questions or comments from anyone? All right, hearing none, let's vote. All in favor of PA4? Aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? PA4 passes. Our final item of the evening is PA5. This is resolution number 15-040, Economic Development Multimodal Transportation Fund Program. This is a motion to adopt Resolution 15-040, approving Abington Township to submit an application to PennDOT for the Multimodal Transportation Fund Program. The grant submission will support the Old York Road Susquehanna Road project, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I know Assistant Township Manager Waymire is not here this evening. Mr. Lefevre, with permission, I can give the overview of this, or I don't know if you want to give the overview of this?
Commissioner, I'd be happy to jump in. Briefly, this is the same grant application that the township has previously submitted through DCED. That grant application is pending. We initially hoped to hear in early November on the status of that grant. Because of the state budget complexities, it looks like we won't receive any feedback to sometime early next year. Since the grant application period for DCED has passed, PennDOT now has a second round of funding for these same funds, based on the same criteria. So the proposal for you this evening is to submit the same grant application to PennDOT for additional consideration. In the event we're not successful in the first round of funding, we'll get the second bite of the apple through the PennDOT process. We may hear at the same time, or actually before, the DCED grant on the status of the application. Basically, it's not tied as tightly to the state budget as the DCED funds. So it's basically the same grant application. We're not looking for any commitment from the township in terms of the matching portion, just to submit the grant and see how it's received by the state.
So in effect, then, we are basically just, this is something that the board, the committee and board approved, the same application. We're just applying for a different round of funding because the first round is sort of is in limbo because of the budget impasse.
That is correct.
For political reasons. All right, thank you. That was very straightforward. Entertaining questions from commissioners on the committee. Commissioners on the board in general? Staff? Audience? The clock ticks.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So the main thing that I wanted to say that it is a constant here that after I sit down, somebody says something that is meant to leave a different impression. There should be an option to be able to get back up and at least correct that and explain it.
If you want to say that and the general comments about public affairs, there will be time for that. But this is about PA 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were at the end.
This is the last item.
Sorry, dozed off for a minute.
Any further questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, let us vote on PA 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PA 5 passes. Now, general comments. 3 minutes, please, and it's very easy because in 3 minutes it'll be 9:50 p.m., so everyone knows how long we've been here.
Okay. All right. So the problem is that, for instance, when I was talking about the Crest Manor before, after I sat down and said that I did not have the information, and none of us have the information on how much public monies are going into that, both Mr. Klein, Commissioner Klein, and Mr. Johnson both said, oh, you've been given that paper. Okay, you've been given that information. I had not. Now, if I'd been able to come up for 1 second and just correct that, okay, and Mr. Johnson had no business saying that because he and I had a conversation and he did not know how much public money and talked about the tax credits and talked about the fact that there is $12 to $13 million of private monies, but that private money is all being written off in tax credits. And so the portion of that ends up being public monies is not known. And so it is a figure that somebody could probably calculate. It depends on the equity markets. But when you approve something, this much money on those units and do not know, that was my point. So that was changed after I sat down and said, oh, you already had the information. I would like you to consider, please, allowing a quick correction. I even tried to apologize once to Mr. Michelow about the Roslyn Boys and Girls Clubs. I wasn't allowed to come up and just make a quick apology. So I'll make that public apology now that I must have had wrong information. I haven't tracked that down yet. But I had 2 sources that I thought were reliable that I got that from. So the issue here is getting to truth and getting to understanding rather than just making people sit down. So I appreciate that. I also would like to see, again, it's a public affairs matter to have our budget laid out properly. I hope as communication and budget and the website, all of that will flow together to get things. Where is the website now? Is it almost ready to appear?
It's in beta testing, basically.
Okay, so you've seen a working model of it?
Pieces of a working model. The pieces are coming together.
Okay. Do we
There'll
have
be an update
do we have any-
relatively soon.
Any kind of a time frame on it, or?
I don't have one now, but I will hope to have a time frame soon.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll leave it there.
All right, thank you. Dr. Stevenson, I saw you, Mr. Bell, so you'll...
Hi, Rita Stevens, 115 Stanley Avenue. I just want to share the good news that the Shade Tree Commission and assorted volunteers are going to be planting $10,000 wholesale value of trees in the next 3 weeks. The money from this is completely grant-funded. It's a combination of the TD Green Streets grant that we started last Arbor Day and Pennsylvania Community Forests. So it's going to include largely the Roslyn area, Grove Park, in through the economic development zones, as well as residential, as well as the parking area around Keswick Village, which is along Parkdale Avenue into Donaldson. So I invite anyone and everyone to come out, family-friendly, November 7th, 12th, and 14th are 3 planting days, and it's on the Shade Tree website. So thanks for your support in the grants, and the trees are coming our way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stevens, and congratulations to Shade Tree for all of your work.
Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. First of all, being familiar with budgets over the last 50 years, I understand it's the fastest way to make a friend or the fastest way to make an enemy. But let me just say one thing. In my observing this budget process, let me just say one thing. Mr. Klein, I think you do a nice job. That's unsolicited, by the way. Commissioner Myers, I want to commend you for your energy and synergy for the PAL event that you could literally out-talk Ray Bell.
Thank you. I think.
Mr. Struthers, thank you for the access that you, every time I have an opportunity to ask you questions, you have never denied me, and I want to thank you for that. To the police department, I don't really care how much it costs. Those folks are 24/7, and I feel safe in this township morning, noon, and night. Unfortunately, they left, so hopefully they'll get the message. I want to thank them for their
Make sure it gets
dedication. Also, the second alarmers who helped save my life twice in the last year, and also the fire department, which I haven't had the opportunity to use, thank goodness, for the last 35 years. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Bell. It was very nice to hear nice words. All right, with that, it's time to adjourn. Goodbye. Out before 10. Out before 10, everybody.